we're here today with Pastor Stina Koppes, and we're going to hear a little bit about her perspective on being an oblate. So, Stina, thanks for being here. So, to start out, I've got an easy question to ask you. How long have you been an oblate?
I became an oblate in 2010, which is easy to remember because it's when my son was born. So they all happened within about a month of one another. Mhm.
I love talking to people in your class, Stina, because they all talk about how fun it was to have a pregnant person in their class. So I think everybody remembers you and how fun it is,
Yes,
I'm sure, for them to meet James now and know that, wow, he's grown
he
teenager.
he
So
is. Yes, it's very fitting to see my own oblation grow with my child. Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit, Stina, about what led you to choose to be connected with St. Paul's Monastery.
I actually first came to St. Paul's Monastery in 2005. I was appointed to a church not too far away and was looking for a place for to hold a women's retreat.
Mhm.
And so that was recommended to me, easy location. And so we came and had a chance, of course, it was in the older building, and had a chance to pray with the sisters and be present, and just really enjoyed being on retreat with a group, but at the monastery. And I was also then, after that retreat and having a good experience in the space, interested in finding other connections with the monastery and whatnot. And so someone that I also worked with
Mhm.
was an oblate with a different community. And she just talked about different ways to get involved with a monastery. And she had also recommended to me spiritual direction with Sister Virginia. And
Mhm.
so I then chose to begin spiritual direction with Sister Virginia not too long after that. So those were actually my early entry points with them. And because I was living close by,
Mhm.
able to, attend if they had Taizé or other, occasional things even before becoming an oblate.
Nice. That's a fun story of how you got connected, and I think it's really how so many people get connected. They come for a retreat or a day
Mhm.
class and just kind of fall in love with prayer and the sisters, in the community. So beautiful. Tell us a little, Stina, about what drew you to study Benedictine spirituality and the rule of Benedict through oblate formation, or maybe you even looked at it before then.
Well, it's funny because I was actually thinking about, before meeting the sisters, I had read the Rule of Benedict in one of my seminary classes,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was dry and boring, and it was something I endured, actually, to just make it through a church history class, because it wasn't attached to real people, and so it just seemed weird, this little red book,
Mm,
no context.
mm,
I remember thinking that was strange, but when I got a chance to meet the sisters and pray in the monastery, and go to spiritual direction regularly,
mm.
and experience their community life, that's really what made me intrigued about Benedictine spirituality, because I just wanted to know what made them tick and what really allowed for this very gentle but strong at the same time grace of God that just permeated so much. And I wanted to know more. And so then it was because of then my relationship and experience of their community that then I became interested in learning about Benedictine spirituality and studying and reading the rule. And now I love reading the rule, which is so funny because it just shows the power of community and that embodied witness, and how it really doesn't make sense if you just kind of pull a book off a shelf by yourself. It's just not, and some people it might, but for me, it really needed to be led by a personal witness first. So, mhm.
Well, and I really appreciate that, Stina, because I think it's hard to read just the rule. And then kind of next best is when you read one with a commentary, but you're absolutely right. Then when you see these people who live it out for years and years, it just becomes this alive, rich history, but yet you're invited into it. So it's a living history, maybe, and the way it connects and is lived out. And even regular people like you and I can attempt, right, to see how it influences our life, and just from our experience together, in different groups, it's so fun to hear, in your leadership role, how you can apply it, and then also just in your family life, which I think so many of us find to be true. So,
Mm.
cool. Well, you in the past, Dina, have been one of our gracious facilitators for initial oblate formation, and you led an evening on, or co-led an evening on Benedictine spirituality. So, why do you think that topic is important for our future oblates?
Well, that's I wish I could had a nice succinct answer for all of that. We talked there's so many ways you could just spend the rest of your life talking about Benedictine spirituality, and how each part of the rule really informs and enriches life. But I think I think that sense of actually when I was just saying the difference of the sisters having this gentle and strong presence,
Mhm.
it's such a subtle and yet deeply integrated approach to life and to encountering God. I love that it's not an easy soundbite, right? Like it is pervasive, but it is you can't easily uh, diminish it to just 2 or 3 points,
Mhm.
and that it just accompanies every facet of life. I just find so compelling, and that's been one of the loveliest things about studying the rule after having the chance to be with the sisters and then regularly pray with oblates is just recognizing how pervasive it is and that just like scripture, it's just inexhaustible how it continues to inform. And I think a lot of times people feel oversaturated with sound bites and easy answers, and sometimes that seems appealing, but it's kind of like drinking salt water. It just leaves you thirsty. Whereas when you drink from Benedictine spirituality, it really does quench your thirst. You just feel like this is something that really fills me. This is something that really strengthens me. And it's not fast food, but it's so nourishing and just yeah. So in our particular night, I think we talked a little bit more specifically about community and hospitality, just those two facets, because there's no way we could talk about all of it. But again, those are two really logistical aspects of living out the rule. And that's an amazing part about the rule and the spirituality is just how they can be so integrated into both our everyday routines as well as allowing us to feel like we've approached the throne of grace, and just ascended to heaven. Like, how are both those things possible at the same time? I don't know, but somehow the rule manages to open our hearts to both
Yeah.
facets of on earth as it is in heaven that I love. Yeah.
It's that both and for sure. As you were talking about it being so nourishing and quenching, it's like that living water that Jesus spoke of. And then I always think back to that quote, and I think it's Joan Chittister, but I've heard many of the sisters at St. Paul say it as well. It's just Benedictine spirituality really allows us a way to live ordinary life extraordinarily well. And I think that captures that both mundane and glorious
Yeah.
bit about it all. So thanks for unpacking that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on and on, couldn't we? But my last question for you today, Stina, is there anything else you would like to say about being an oblate with St. Paul's Monastery?
Well, one reason that I pursued becoming an oblate was in addition to being interested in Benedictine spirituality, I was at a place where I also was looking for uh, spiritual community and friendships that would augment what my local church work was. So since I work in a local church, I I love being a part of a local church and I have a lot of clergy colleagues and connections and all of those friendships, but I was really looking for a community additionally where I could pray in such a way where it was very consistent with kind of my approach and my interests, but also separate. So that way, it would allow me to feel like I wasn't caught in talking shop. Because that happens a lot, even with pastors, even if we get together to pray, it's natural that you're going to want to care for one another's concerns. And that's good. But and I wanted a place where I felt like I was connecting with the larger church,
Mhm.
and able to provide some um, expansion of kind of who I was, and making sure it wasn't a reduction of my role. Uh, I don't think you ever separate those two things out, but really, like I said, so it wasn't just I wasn't reducing myself to the role, that there was this continuous intentionality in my prayer life of making sure that those parts of myself were continuing to be enriched and stretched and developed and refined. And that I think is really possible with the oblate community. Another part too that I'd lift up is I've really appreciated that there's an understanding that depending on where you are in life, sometimes your place with the oblate community looks really different.
Mm,
So when I've lived closer, years ago when I lived closer, I'd come for centering prayer in the morning, right? And you'd be there at 6 a.m. and praying there, or being on site more regularly, or just doing things in a different way.
mhm,
But when you move, or when life takes you in a different direction, we're present in different ways. And I appreciate that you can be a faithful oblate even
yeah,
when those circumstances change. And because our current oblate community has worked so diligently on digital connections, we're finding ways to maintain and even expand the ways we can connect with one another, which I think is wonderful. So I'm really grateful for that with the oblate community with St. Paul's.
yeah. Well, Stina, thank you. I think you're such a great example of what I love about the Oblate community is that it's just a group of people, an ecumenical group of people who really want to go deeper together. And I have met such amazing, wonderful people who we're just going deep in this faith journey together. And it is a delight because of the many ways we can communicate: Zoom, hybrid, in person. It really is quite friendly for people at all stages in places of life. So, Stina Koppes, thank you so much.